Shadows fall, dimming the light. Whispers grow, a rising tide. Vindicator, where do you hide? Steel is over, heart ablaze. Through smoky haze, he sets his gaze. Justice calls a burning need. A city's wounds he vows to heed. From cobbled streets to tower high, Vindicator takes to the sky. Strikes back with iron hands, defender of this promised land. Breaks the chains, sets spirits free. Vindicator for all to see. Whispers turn to thunderous roar as shadows creep. He slams the door on tyranny's cruel, grasping hand. He fights for freedom, takes a stand with courage born of darkest night. He ignites hope, a guiding light. Strikes back with iron hands, defender of this promised land. Breaks the chains, sets spirits free. Vindicator for all to see. Though battles rage and darkness reigns, hope's ember burns within his veins. He'll never yield, he'll never fall. He answers freedom's clarion call. Strikes back with iron hands, defender of this promised land. Breaks the chains, sets spirits free. Vindicator for all to see. A symbol etched against the moon. Vindicator rising soon.
Hello everybody, how you all doing? I hope you're doing great on this where I am. It's a nice sunny Saturday afternoon. A bit chilly this morning, went out for the morning walk. But apart from that, everything's good. I hope you guys are doing okay. Hi Matthew, hey Steve, hey Craig, everybody, how you all doing? Right, we'll get the show on the road in a minute. I'll put it on the screen what I'm actually going to play. We're going to actually look at a video today from Spike TV. Because I watched it the other day. I haven't watched it all the way through, but it's very interesting. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to play a section of it. So I'll leave a link to it in the underbar when the live stream's finished. If you want to go and watch the whole interview, you can do. But I'm probably just going to play the first part of it because I don't want to get any copyright claims or anything like that against me. But we'll stop and pause, and we'll talk about what's being said and stuff like that. I've just got to do something with the live stream at the minute, so just bear with me a few seconds while I do this. I should have done it before, but it's I forgot to do it. Just got to do something on the live stream. Make sure it's all okay. Is it actually live streaming on here? Where's the live streams? Right, that's great. It's not actually showing up at the minute. Right. Let me go to the actual. Sorry about this. It's just technical difficulties at the minute. I should have done this because otherwise things go wrong with a live stream. Do apologise. We're back in a minute with I've done this. Just talk amongst yourselves for a minute while I sort this out. Here we go. Yeah, I think I might have to actually do it on here. Yeah, can't do it on my phone. I remembered I can't actually do this on my phone, so I need to go on here and do it. Right. We'll stop sharing a minute. I'll do this. We'll come back to that. Let's have a look. Right, content. Lives. It's annoying, this, because there's things you have to do that should be automated that aren't automated. There we go. That's it. It's done. There we go. Yeah, that should do it. It's about everybody. I'm back. Let's look at the chat. The things. Right. Okay. We're back. Let's talk about the subject of today, the politicized police force. And now Steve's going to be a real authority on this because he's an ex-police officer. So, like I was saying, this is an interview between. In fact, I'll drop the link to it in the chat, and then I'll link to it later on as well. Before we actually watch it, there we go. So this is the link to the chat, not to the chat, to the documentary that I'm about to show. There you go. So if you want to go and watch this after the live stream, you can just click on the link and go and watch it. But I found it interesting because, you know, it's not conspiracy theory that the police is politicized and it has a two-tier system. We all know it does. I've experienced it myself. The last protest that I did at the Sandpiper Hotel highlighted this, where the police were just picking who was a journalist and who wasn't, even though they have no powers to do that. You don't need to carry press accreditation to be classed as a journalist. And that's what the police were doing. They were deciding who were press and who weren't. And there is literally nothing within the law that allows them to decide that. Nothing at all. Right, so it's entitled, "The Police Have Totally," well, whatever that is, that the activist will be, a former Met police officer speaks out. Right, so we'll just watch this from here.
Hello, I'm Georgina Mumford, and I'm delighted to be joined today by former Metropolitan Police Officer and counter-terrorism specialist Paul Birch. Welcome, Paul.
Good morning, Georgina. Lovely to be here.
Paul, it seems like the state of policing in the UK has become something at the forefront of our national conversation at the moment. And there's lots of things that people are concerned about, but I think one of the main issues is crackdowns on free speech. And we're now seeing over 30 arrests a day for online communications related offences. And that's not only an outrageous number, but it's also a 58% spike from pre-pandemic levels. So the first question I wanted to ask you was, what's going on in the police force that there is this increase in tendencies to arrest for speech-related crimes?
So easy.
I think there are a number of things at play here. One is the fact that I know people go on about a lack of police numbers, but that certainly is a factor. Online crimes, or what are assessed to be crimes, are comparatively easy to investigate. You have someone who can be traced via an online account on social media or whatever. They can generally be traced via those details. And if they say anything, or if they write anything on a post that's deemed offensive or may break Communications Act legislation, etc., then it's pretty much bang to rights. In that respect, it's an easy clear up, to use like the police parlance. And police are judged on clear up rates. When you think of the Met, for example, the Metropolitan Police, due to a Policy Exchange report, only recently released, I think, they currently solve 1 in 179 thefts against the person, which is pretty woeful.
So just let that sink in. Let that sink in about our police force. I think it was publicised the other day. I think this was on GB News, where basically they're only solving 7% of all crime. 7%. They're only tackling 7% of all crime. So what are they doing? So what Steve says, there's no lack of police numbers when they send 6 people to a journalist house because his wife queried over school pot. Yeah, exactly. They've always got the resources when they need the resources, haven't they, Steve? Police couldn't catch a cold. They're not fit for purpose. I think we can all agree on that. The police in its current state, they're just simply not fit for purpose. And I drew this conclusion as well. I drew this issue up as well. And I actually said this to a person at the last protest I was at. I asked them, I said, do you really think that the police force in its current state, if these people in this hotel, if these people do turn out to be what people suspect they are, a foreign military coming through and invading our country, would the police force be able to tackle them in their current state? And I just said, no, they wouldn't be able to tackle them. Look at little tiny women that are on police forces and stuff like that. And you really expect these diversity, equity, and inclusion hires to be able to deal with ISIS insurgents? Because I don't. There's no way in hell they'll be able to deal with them. They're social workers. They only go after the low-hanging fruit. They're not interested in dealing with burglaries. They're not interested in dealing with serious crime. They're not interested in turning out fastly to prevent people getting hurt. They don't care about that. The calls for the local people in Sheepbridge, which is where the Sandpiper Hotel is, fell on deaf ears when their young daughters were being followed around nature trails by the residents of those hotels, the young women that didn't go out at night because of the residents of those hotels. It's changed the dynamic of their community. Whereas once they had the freedom to go about and do what they wanted in relative peace and knew they were safe, now an element's been added to their community where they can't do that anymore. And our police won't respond to that. They'll only ever respond if the illegal immigrant hotel itself is under threat. They don't care about the surrounding area and the people that the hotel might affect. And this is why we say there's two-tier policing, because they have different priorities for different groups of people. And he goes on to say this in the actual interview. Let's carry on with it.
Woeful by any yardstick. It's a woeful figure. And yet, if you go after people online, it's a comparatively easy clear up. And as you yourself mentioned, they are arresting 30 people a day for that. Not all of those will end up with a charge and a conviction. But if they do end up with any kind of judicial disposal, that will be a clear up for them. So it's comparatively easy. And also in the last few years, we've seen police forces across the country establish hate crime teams, because hate crime on the internet or hate speech online is a topic that's discussed widely. And the police, certainly at senior level, want to be seen to be part of the solution to that. So they go at it with great gusto. Hate crime teams have been established all over the place. And because their raison d'etre is hate crime, they are staffed by people who are generally naturally inclined towards that sort of thing, have an interest in investigating so-called hate crime or hate speech. And also, it's a sad fact, in the modern police force, you are judged on your diversity score, in the sense of investigations that involve any form of racism, sexism, homophobia, or even
It's not fit for purpose, is it, the police force? Given what this guy is saying, do you really think that's a priority, that they've got some kind of diversity score? How insane is that? Because that completely bypasses without fear or favour, doesn't it? Oh, you're going to be judged on, how many arrests you've made due to, you know, the woke message, being a good ally to the woke message. It's not fit for purpose. The entire police force needs to be reformed completely, doesn't it?
Transphobia. These are topics that are very important to, like, the College of Policing, the organisation, the professional body, if you like, that establishes the framework for policing. So there's political pressure to increase these forms of investigations, and financial pressure in there are a whole lot easier to investigate.
Well, in that case then, right, the minute the police become politicised and are pressures put on them politically to deal with certain incidents in a different way, then the police are compromised. They're no longer fit for purpose. That's just how I see it. Why is because this is why we have a separate system. The police are supposed to be separate from the state for good reason. This is why we separated them. The police are a separate entity, the CPS is a separate entity, and the state is a separate entity. They should never be aligned or have any sort of connections, but they clearly do now, don't they? They clearly do. And the reason we separate these things up is to prevent a police state, because when those things become aligned and they start working in tandem with one another, then you don't have a free country, because one should always be scrutinizing the other, and that isn't happening. They all share the same ideology, but once that happens, you've lost any objectivity from the police force. That policing without fear or favour goes straight out the window. That's why most of the police officers haven't got a clue what their oath is. Miss B, have you seen the Edge of the Matrix attacker wasn't even locked? Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, they're deliberately just avoiding, aren't they? If that was any of us, if we'd have gone up to, obviously this is proven about two-tier policing, we know what would have happened if he'd have defended himself in such a way that injured that so-called trans woman, which is bullshit. We all know it's bullshit. Then he would have been he'd have been held, wouldn't he? Not released at all, because that would have, like he's been saying here, that would boost up the diversity arrest quota. Yeah, exactly. And then they're saying, oh, two-tier policing doesn't exist. Load of rubbish. It does exist. We can see it. They can lie all they want. They can try and make believe it doesn't exist, but we can all see it.
Than real life crime.
So it sounds like this is really a top-down or institutional problem. I mean, we've seen ordinary people who've been arrested for things they've said online, but then we've also seen more high-profile arrests, like journalist Alison Pearson, comedy writer Graham Linehan as well. So presumably someone quite high up the chain is calling the shots here, and the young officers aren't. Well, I presume young officers aren't.
Right. So when you protect an ideology over another, because that's what's happening, because wokeness and everything is a political ideology. It's you're making a statement that they're protected, and you'll be treated differently to those people when they do something. That's something that the police should not be doing. This is why they're supposed to be politically neutral. They're not supposed to hold any type of political belief. This is why the whole thing, I keep having to repeat this, this is why the whole thing of policing without fear or favour even exists. It's to make sure everybody's treated equally in the eyes of the law. Now, can we truly say that's happening in this country now? Because I don't think it is. Not everybody is treated the same in the eyes of the law. If you have a trans rights activist that commits assault on somebody that's standing against their worldview, they'll be treated with kid gloves, as Steve's pointed out. The guy that attacked Edge of the Matrix wasn't even charged or wasn't even held, even though he committed assault. Yet if that happened the other way around, if Edge of the Matrix, through course of defending himself, had to injure that so-called trans rights activist, then, like Steve said, he would have spent 24 hours in a police cell. That's two-tier policing. Police officers in Spain said to me, British police forces think they're in North Korea. Yeah. Two-tier is part of the MK Ultra. Let's call it what it is. If they're attacking women, it's sexist. If they are targeting white people, it's racist. So please, let's change our language. Okay. Right, let's carry on.
Joining up to actually do this kind of thing.
Show your living room some love with Dunelm, the home of mood-boosting refreshes. From so.
There are some now. There are some, not many. One of the last courses I attended before I left the organisation was made up of managers, police managers, and some of them were younger in service, and they very much towed the line in terms of political correctness or wokery, if you like.
And herein lies the problem, isn't it? That these are the pieces that are being moved around the board. They've got very little experience, very little worldview. They've just been brainwashed straight out of university, and then they're put in these positions to act as gatekeepers. This is what I was talking about in this morning's morning walk video, about we have to remove these gatekeepers from these positions of power, or if we can't remove them, we reduce their ability to spread and do what they're doing. We have to legislate against them to prevent them doing what they're doing. So even though they're in positions of power, that power is relatively controlled. So they can't just do what they like in that regard. And this is what happens. They get these woke young individuals that have no life experience, and instead of like promoting some older officer that's probably got some good experience, all they want to do is to put yes men into positions of power and control because they know they can be easily controlled. If you've got an experienced, seasoned officer being promoted, they might not be so easily corrupted into the woke ideology. And this is what I mean. It's the gatekeeper process that prevents these people getting into those positions and stopping this insanity from ever happening. And these are the checks and balances that need to be put in place if we're to retake the police, which is going to be a very hard job. A while ago, a leaflet through the door for the police recruitment, high migrant population area, and it said to be a detective, you don't even have to do 2 years probation in uniform. My God. This is why we're getting all these detective inspectors and all these sort of people that go up to auditors and don't know the law at all, and just make fools of themselves and end up costing the taxpayer a fortune in compensation payouts because they get the law wrong.
To use a hackneyed term, there are people in the police now who very much, because they've seen this come from the top down, they've seen this come from the higher echelons, they are joining an organisation now that perhaps a few years ago they wouldn't have dreamed of joining. But they're still in the minority. But it's
there's a reason why you're getting all these woke people joining the police force. It's because they see an opportunity to have their activism given authority. So they can go out there and be an activist police officer, and now they've got the backup of the law on their side. They've got a warrant card to back up their bias. So it's basically living out a fantasy. They've now got the ability to put people in prison that speak out against what they believe. This is why it's absolutely riddled with woke police officers, and this is why they get promoted.
Yeah, it's very much a top-down thing. The policing at the very top, certainly with the College of Policing and the National Police Chiefs Council, both products of the Cameron premiership and Theresa May's stint as Home Secretary. These are very, very politicized. You have, most police forces now have a police race action plan, very much using the language of activists, the language of sort of professional advocates, if you like. Black is a capitalized B all the time. So it's very much a top-down thing, yeah. And also you're judged on this now, very much judged on this, rather than ordinary crime. So it's very, very much a top-down thing, and they seem to, the more they criticize, the more they seem to double down on it, which is strange. They sort of dig in, and they're more sort of vociferous about that now than they were previously, which is bizarre, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned like race action plans there and social justice language bleeding into policing. I think people are really concerned about two-tier policing at the moment, the idea that the police are protecting the interests of certain communities over others. Do you think that that is a fair assessment to make? And is that a new phenomenon, or has it been going on for a while now?
No, it's a very fair assessment to make. It's certainly a thing, and anyone, senior police officers from forces around the country deny it. I suppose they're going to have to deny it. They can't admit it, but more by accident than design. I think the police has morphed into very much an arm of an activist government, an activist class. They don't do it deliberately. Certainly not on the ground. They don't do it deliberately. For example, we've seen in cases where we've had the pro-Palestinian marches in London on an almost weekly basis, up until quite recently, where someone with a placard saying Hamas are terrorists, they're arrested rather than the people sort of shouting pro-Hamas slogans. There are several reasons for that. One is probably they're a bit reticent to tangle with thousands of people rather than just take one out of the situation. Doesn't excuse it at all, of course. And also they haven't got the resources to back that up. If it kicks off if they...
See, I disagree with that. I disagree with that there, because they've always got the resources to come in hard against the Patriots. I mean, look at the St. George's Day incident where the police had full riot gear on. They had no issues tackling that crowd of people with the batons drawn, going in and charging in. So why can't they do this with the pro-Palestinian side, unless they've got a political bias towards them? And that's the crux of everything. That's what it is. Because we know that orders come down from the police chief, the chief constables, that state you will police these people differently because of woke ideology, because of their political beliefs. This is why they're put into these positions. This is why we have chief constables and inspectors that are deeply, deeply politicized, just like political judges. And we know they hand down orders to police different groups of people differently. Look at the Palestine Action lot. They got hats and white shirts uniform, just carrying them off. Whereas the Patriots, they always get the full riot gear. Full riot gear, TSG, they're cruising for a fight every single time. Same thing happened at the Sandpiper Hotel. They have riot gear, gloves on there, all the padding on and stuff like that, ready for a fight. You never see that at the pro-Palestine marches. It's almost like the police are actually marching with them, if you look at them. So I disagree with him on that point. He says, oh, it's not bad. Yeah, it is. The police chiefs are heavily compromised in this country. Look at the chat. They even get activists to let... Yeah, we've seen that one with Steve. Yeah, we've seen that. I've heard of that. I just couldn't go to any protests or marches. I know I'd get nicked. Yeah, I think a lot of people think like that. There's been a few times where I've had to just walk away because I thought I'm just going to get arrested here. That is rubbish. If you don't have the confidence to arrest someone, as we used to, then don't join. Exactly. And we've seen it, Steve. He says that they are reluctant to go in and arrest people with thousands of people there. But they don't have that problem when there's thousands of patriots, do they? We know it's political. These people are talking about 101 communism that wants to destroy this beautiful land. Exactly, we know that. Well, I spoke to the goal commander in Newcastle, but I've got stupid confidence.
Try and arrest hundreds of people in a demonstration involving thousands of people.
Well, you know what? Saying that, they didn't have those issues with the lockdown protest, did they? Where they formed snatch squads and they charged in batons raised to snatch people out of the thousands of people protesting against lockdowns. They had no issues with that either. It seems that they don't have any issues or any confidence problems when it's people protesting against the state, do they? They don't seem to have any confidence problems then. When it's St. George's Cross and the Union flag that's flying, it seems to be like open season on those protests. Whereas when it's the Free Palestine, the Palestinian flag, and it's the Pride flag, then it's kid gloves and they're reluctant to charge in there. And that's not just me saying that. That's from looking at hours upon hours of footage from protests and watching how the police deal with people and different groups of people. And you can plainly see it's two-tier. They have a different attitude towards different groups of people. Look at the Just Stop Oil crowd. It took them hours to get them off the road. They were giving them water. They were gently talking to them. Yet I saw people that were in the road, that were walking the road, and instantly they were jumped on by the police at Patriot Protest March. They didn't get a bottle of water. They just got told to get out of the road or they would be arrested.
It might get a bit violent, and they won't have public order trained officers waiting around the corner in streets full of carriers and vans, because that cost him.
Yeah, but they can afford that cost when it's Patriots, can't they? They can afford that when it's Patriots. They can have the TSG from all regions, from all around the country, lined up in London, ready to strike. But yet they can't afford that when it's the pro-Palestine marches. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that one little bit, that it's because of the cost or anything. Because all of a sudden, the resources, the personnel are always available to act against Patriot plan marches, aren't they? Yep. That's a good example, Steve. We might watch that in a bit. We might watch that video just to show people the two-tierness of what's going on, because not a lot of people have seen that video, actually. Might be worth watching after we've covered this a little bit. But yeah, I was out at protest in Sheffield, the UKIP protest, and some elderly gentleman went to grab for my camera. He came up to me and tried to grab my camera, and I pointed to the officer and said, "Are you going to stop him?" And then he moved the guy away, to his credit, but then he came up to me and said, "Stop antagonizing him." It's like, how am I antagonizing him? He came up to me. We'll watch that in a bit. It's a good point, Steve. Some of these, I've had an idea. It's quite simple. Everybody turns up with T-shirts and signs saying, "I'm not protesting." What do they do? Well, we tried that. We didn't have any Union flags. Well, I did on my jacket and stuff, but so did they. So really, I could call them protesters, couldn't I? Really, by their own definition, their logic. But yeah, they weren't carrying flags. The citizens weren't carrying flags or anything like that. They said, "We're not protesters. We're just here to get both sides of the protest," and the police wouldn't let them do it. So I don't think that would have any effect. They would just ignore it. The world has flipped. Police were against the miners in '84. Now they're against Patriots in 25. Different government police still doing their bidding. Exactly. But why not do they be acting as a hit squad during? Exactly. Saying exactly a lot again, aren't I? Steve, recruitment in the prison service, get people from Nigeria, been in jail for sexual offences in Nigeria. It looks like you're not doing a DBS check and people joining UK prison from that. Wow. Thing is, though, why aren't they investing? Mind just saying that. I'm guessing that most people in this country don't particularly want to be a prison officer in this country. If you have, I'm not protesting means you're protesting. Yeah, good point. Yes, your missus will be complaining. Yes, she will be, Steve. I remember the Palace of Westminster. We've got the largest bunch of debaters in the land. Yeah. Well, pantomime. We've got the largest pantomime in the land, really, haven't we, when we talk about Parliament, because that's all it is.
Too much money, so they won't want to do that. So they end up, the perception is almost more important than the reality sometimes. The perception is they act in a two-tier way. And they know at the senior levels that people aren't going to protest if they go in hard against...
See, I disagree with that again. They're not acting in a two-tier way. They are being two-tier. They're not acting like it. It is two-tier.
A load of football fans who are trying to get to the cenotaph. You know, the sort of elite classes, the intelligentsia, if you like, aren't going to complain if they go wading into a bunch of football fans who are white, working class, and a bit rough around the edges. Student activists with their keffiyehs on and shouting from the river to the sea is going to provoke more reaction if you go in hard against them. And we've seen that week in, week out. You know, when people are climbing all over war memorials, damaging things, graffitiing things, very little seems to happen. And yet...
I'm sorry, but the police are the police. Regardless of how they're thought of, they have to uphold the law. And it seems that the police higher-ups are more concerned about their profile in the media than they are in actually upholding the law equally for everybody. And I'm guessing this is highlighting what's wrong with our police force.
Yet, you know, we saw in the disturbances post Southport in 2024 that the police went in really, really hard. At very much government insistence, I think. That was from the very top, I think. That was very much directed from...
Yeah, pretty much, you know, I'm not entirely sure why the government should have that type of influence over the police. They're not supposed to. Let's check something out a minute. We're going to check this out in a minute as well, just to break up this. Because this is important to look at as well. We will come back to this, but we're going to check something else out for the time being. Because we are policed by consent, and we're supposed to be policed by consent in this country. But that, sadly, seems to be a thing of the past, doesn't it? Show it on screen. Yeah, show it on screen. So, police by consent. The concept of policing by consent in the UK is rooted in the belief that the authority of the police derives from the consent and cooperation of the public they serve. Now, note this here, right? The consent of the public they serve. Now, somewhere along the line, the police have forgotten this sentence, the consent and cooperation of the public they serve, because they seem to have forgotten that, and they uphold this sentence with their oath, the oath of office. That's been forgotten. So this principle is based on the 9 principles of policing by consent, often referred to as the Peelian principles, articulated by Sir Robert Peel. These principles emphasize the importance of public approval of the police's actions, the need for cooperation in law enforcement, and the use of minimal physical force when necessary. The principles were set out in the general instructions issued to every new police officer from 1829 and have been a fundamental aspect of British policing for over 2 centuries. The principles of policing by consent are essentially for maintaining public trust and confidence in the police service. Unfortunately, I would say faith in the police force at the minute has been absolutely destroyed. Operation Command is supposed to be divorced from politics, but in reality, it never has been. Take the taxation on Brixton riots yet. Prison officers get 33k a year and get people from the job centre need work. Yeah, I've been offered it. I got offered prison officer jobs, and it's like, no, definitely not. I've got a few friends that have just come out of it. They worked in I'm not sure I could mention. I shouldn't really mention the prison because they might have still not have left properly. I'll not mention the prison, but it's let's just say that it's near Stafford. It's near Staffordshire. There's quite a few in Staffordshire. So if I just say that, and they've said the training is absolutely, it's just woke. Everything's woke. The training's woke. They're not really given much protection regarding prisoners, some really dangerous prisoners and stuff. They got out because they're more. There's a high chance that you can get stabbed. Put it that way. And they confirmed everything that Tommy Robinson said about jihadi gangs controlling prisons. It's true. It's 100% true. And to some extent, the prison, the official prison authority is complicit in that, because rather than deal with it, they just allow it to happen. Prison officer. No, I quite like uniforms, but that of it, the traffic warden, pass on it. Yeah, not good. Anyway, let's get back to this. They guide the police in their interactions with the public, ensuring they act in a manner that is seen as impartial and respectful. Well, that's been completely thrown out the window, that hasn't it? The bit about being impartial and respectful, because I've seen quite a few police officers that are neither impartial or respectful. I mean, I can go back to the actual event at the Sandpiper again, can't I? Where they clearly weren't impartial, because they were deciding who were police, who were journalists, and who weren't. That's not impartial, is it? Ensuring that in part, the principals also inform the police use of physical force, encouraging them to use it only when necessary. And well, look at AY audits. Again, the Sandpiper Hotel, as soon as they got him past the police line, that one of the bigger officers went straight in on him, threw his face against the wall, even though he wasn't resisting. So again, it's not good. In a manner that respects the rights and dignity of individuals. Well, that's right out the window, isn't it? Despite the importance of these principles, there are ongoing discussions about the needs for reforms to ensure that the British tradition of policing by consent continues to thrive. Yes, they need to get rid of all wokeness, all politicised police constables, chief constables, inspectors. They need to be kicked out of the police force. That's what needs to happen in the reforms. It needs to be gone. All this critical race theory, diversity, equity, inclusion, hiring, bollocks, it all needs to be kicked out of the police force, and it returned to policing without fear or favour. The Home Secretary has warned that without major reforms, the tradition could cease to exist. Well, they don't care about that. That's what they want. Highlighting the need for a strategic reset in the relationship between government and policing. There should be it should be completely separate. Somebody suggested today in the comments that it should just be local police forces. You should just have a local police department for your town, and they're completely separate from all other police forces. The guidelines are the same, obviously, for policing across the country, but they're just completely separate from government and other police forces. That's what needs to happen. could cease to exist, highlighting a need for strategic reset in the relationship between government and policing. The principles of policing by consent are also relevant in the context of modern policing, as they continue to shape the way police departments operate and interact with the community. They are a key component of the professional standards upheld by that needs to be gone. The College of Policing needs to be completely abolished, in my opinion, and something else put in its place, which emphasises the importance of maintaining trust and confidence in the police service. Well, sadly, they're failing pretty well on that one, aren't they? 100% they're failing on all of that. Afternoon, Stefan. How you doing, mate? Good to see you. Yes, I remember that in my service book. Do you think police forces getting people from home? We used to have local force prior to 1969 to 74 amalgamation, and now I have to say it was dire. All right, okay. Okie dokie. Right, so that was that. We'll go back to the video again. We'll just show a little bit more of that, and then what I'll do is I'll throw the floor open to anybody that wants to come in and have a chat. That's how we're going to do it. That's how we roll.
From the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister.
It is almost understandable to an extent, because it seems as though it's an overcompensation for what would have been very real grievances between ethnic minorities and the police in the 70s and 80s. I wonder if you felt any kind of rumblings of that.
Right, the thing is, right, and let's make this perfectly clear. In society, there is a no more protected group of people than minorities. That they are well and truly protected. Nobody can say that minorities in this country are not protected, because the police and the government and the judiciary bend over backwards to protect these people, even from their own actions, even from when they do commit crime. Look at judges that give softer sentences on illegal immigrants. We had a guy the other day that was given a 6-month suspended sentence, even though he had committed a serious action. And I think we can all guess what that action was. A suspended sentence. And yet you've got other people that have had hurty words on the internet that have been getting 3 years imprisonment for that.
Overcompensation when you first became a police officer?
Yes, very much so. Well, I joined in 2001, so you're only 2 years out from the Macpherson report there. The inquiry into the police handling of the Stephen Lawrence murder, the racist murder of Stephen Lawrence. And that I wasn't in policing before that, but it very much seemed to be a pivotal moment in policing. And from then on, what I've noticed is senior ranks, or the police as an entity, doesn't really defend itself when it faces allegations of prejudice, racism, or what have you. It just says
what they do is they just go down to London at the Black Lives Matter protest. They just take the knee because they're political activists. Because just like many other generations, they've been taught to hate themselves by our education system. So they immediately feel guilty when they see a protest by Black Lives Matter, and they take the knee. And in doing so, they paint targets on their backs, because now you're sending out a signal that you're weak, that you will capitulate to these people. That's something a police force shouldn't be doing. It should be politically neutral.
If a government or a think tank says jump, they'll say how high. They won't say, let's take a step back here and let's look into this particular issue. They don't. They just take it on the chin. And whenever someone calls them racist or prejudiced,
yeah, I'll tell you where they will defend themselves, though. When people call them two-tier policing, they'll defend themselves then. When it's patriots questioning them. They will defend themselves when patriots at a protest, citizen journalists are saying to them, we're protected under Section 17 public order rights for journalists from your Section 14 restrictions. They'll protect themselves then. They'll stand up for themselves then against those people. But you get some jihadi in a pro-Palestine march come up to them and call them racist. They'll take the knee. They'll bend over backwards. They'll just accept it. We know because we've seen it. We've seen it, haven't we? Then, just to address the matter of the police, when they have broken their oath to the people, they no longer have to function. They have a function of a police of the people in indoctrination into this warped ideology, which is woke. Exactly. I totally agree with that, Stefan. They can't. I believe I was there. I tried to film it, but I couldn't get quite in on it. They were asked if at the protest at the Sandpiper and several other protests I've been at, I've heard people say this: "Are you here today on your oath?" And they didn't even know what they were talking about, let alone being able to recite it. Steve, they didn't know what they were talking about, and they don't understand that if they're taking part in police activities, then they're always working on their oath, and that oath is to police without fear or favour. I think police do not like AY on the street. No, they don't. They don't like any citizen journalist because this is why they prefer the mainstream media, the controlled media, as I call them. They're not really news media. Let's just call them what they are: propaganda. They prefer the propaganda merchants because they know they're only going to show the police in a good light. Whereas citizen journalists are just going to report the whole thing. They're just going to stream things as they happen. The story with citizen journalists, the story isn't already written with them. So when they point that camera at the police, the people at home in their living rooms are getting reality, raw reality, not a twisted view of reality. And that's why the police don't like citizen journalists, because they're doing the job. They're actually being journalists. They're actually holding power to account. They're speaking truth to power, and they don't like it because they themselves, the police, are drunk on power. They've been given way too much power over the public without hardly any oversight or accountability at all. And that's what needs to change. No, I'm not interested in it. I'm just not interested in that at all. Sorry to say, I'm not interested in it. It doesn't achieve anything in my eyes. So no, I won't be watching it. Right, so I'm going to stop sharing that out. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to post a link in the chat. Anybody wants to come in and talk for a bit, they can do. Then I'm not going to show the whole thing. What I'll do, instead of posting a link on this live stream, I'll make a post and I'll post it onto my community section of my channel. So if you want to go and see the whole interview, you can go and watch it on my community channel when I finish the live stream. Let's copy this and we'll just drop the link in the chat. Anyone wants to come in and have a chat, you can do for a bit, by all means. There we go. Anybody wants to come in and have a chat, now's the opportunity to do so. Other than that, it's only going to be for about 6 minutes or so because I like to keep these things down to about an hour. So if you want to come in, you better start making your decision now if you want to come in or not. Because I like to keep these things in under an hour. Stefan's in. Hi, Stefan. How you doing,
going, mate?
How's it going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Plodding on like you do.
So what do you think about what do you think about the whole politicized police situation in this country?
Well, in my view, it's not fit for purpose. It doesn't do what it says on the tin. Like I say, they've broken their oath to the people. They're policed with favour. So what part of their remit, their job, are they actually fulfilling? They're not. They're state. They're the arm of the state. Nothing more. You've got thugs. They've lowered the bar, that low. I mean, if you see some of the videos of some of these, especially the women police officers, these people should not be upholding laws.
You know what, right? I've been at several protests now, Stefan, and I see the women police officers. They're about 5 foot, and they look
Yeah.
like they belong in a hair and beauty salon rather than being
Yeah.
a police officer.
Yeah. Look at that one fella did to the woman in the airport, and look what the reaction was from that one woman. I'm
I got a
not
lot of
saying
stick
that
for
women.
that. I got loads of stick for saying that she basically she's putting people at risk because a bloke
Exactly.
would have got up, taken that, and still be there to help his partner out because they were being
Yeah, of course.
attacked.
Of course.
She fell apart.
Yeah, I mean, you know yourself, Finn, because of the your background. You cannot afford, if you're in a hostile situation, to have a weakness in your line, because then, like you say, everybody else has got to cover, and then you're not only worried about your potential enemy, you're worried about one of your members of your team that is not up to scratch.
But it's not just
You know,
that. If you've got somebody like that woman in your, say, in my position out in Iraq doing close protection, and she falls apart, I've now got to babysit her as well as fight off,
which puts you at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this goes across the board. I mean, you look at the military. The thing is, what we've got to try and address is the way that we can get these people away from where they are somehow, whether it's especially in the army, because I've heard through certain different ways that the army will not turn on the people. If the time comes, but if there's not enough of them sort of people in the army, you sort of, it's been depleted decade after decade.
A report came out. I know this is going off topic, but a report came out and said that we've got less than 18,000 combat-ready troops.
I mean, do you know what I mean? If that's being put out in mainstream, could you imagine, like, the people that actually want to do us harm in heinous ways? They hear something like that, then it's like open season.
Yeah. The Ministry of Defence. The Ministry of Defence did a simulation with a sustained war with Russia, and the conclusion came out that we could only last 14 days.
Yeah.
But the casualty list,
that alone is in the loosest of terms when you say
that's not just the army, Stefan. That's not just the army. That's the whole armed forces, Air Force, Navy, everything.
Yeah.
14 days.
Yeah, like you say, the Ministry of Defence. Really? Have they been defending us? The South Coast got an open border. We've been invaded on a daily basis by people. Not all, but I'd say a lot of them are coming from places they've not been allowed to stay before. They're undesirables. They're not going to contribute. They're not going to integrate. They're just going to cause havoc and fall into the black market and then criminality and all the rest of it.
I'll be honest with you, Stefan. Right, I think next summer is going to be the trigger point. I think it's going to all come to a head next summer because it cools off in the winter. Or we've noticed the numbers tend to drop off from protests in the winter for obvious reasons. Yeah.
I remember Rishi Sunak, didn't he come out with a comment like that when it was winter? Oh, they've stopped coming. Well, it's fucking winter, mate. You know what I mean? There's a high chance that that's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, like I say, have you heard about this national shutdown strike in I forget the fellow. I was watching it last night. The fellow that's trying to organise it.
If you remember, Stefan, me and Tom were promoting this. We've been promoting this for ages, but nobody was interested. Nobody was interested back in the day when we were promoting it.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden we've got all these big YouTubers. I think Lord has just.
Well, that's good though, isn't it, Vin? That's good. That's exactly, you know what I mean? That's for the likes of you that have been pushing it from the get-go. And it does spread when somebody's watched something and then they maybe understand, well, actually, this could work. Because what do all governments need? They need money. How are they going to fund a war against Russia when they haven't got any money? Don't tell me they've got money in the coffers, but yeah, once their bloodline, which is the currency, once that is stopped or ceased, then what can they do? They've got to react. And could you imagine if you'd done a national shutdown and you had 3 million of us outside the Houses of Parliament in number 10? Look what happened in Bulgaria not so long ago, last week or a few days ago, whenever it was. It can be done, mate. You know this.
I think what it is, Stefan, right? Because we had the United Kingdom march, but it wasn't capitalised on. All that momentum just went away. It just dissipated. And it's like
exactly.
What's the point in doing that if you're not going to capitalise on the momentum you've created?
Exactly. When you mean that what you say when you're protesting, and Tommy Robertson, the way that he's done it, where it's a family day, celebrate, don't show no this and don't show no that. But it's got to a point where you have really got to show these people your displeasure and your complete contempt for what they are trying to push on you. Unelected, putting through laws that are not, that are not being put to the people, trying to take justice away with the juries. I mean, who the fuck does this Lammy think he is? These people should not be like Mahmood, another one, should not be in Parliament. They should be holding no power at all, none of them. But yet these people are there to destroy what's left of our country.
My point is, I'm drawing. I'm coming to a conclusion now. Well, I've known this for a long time. That once your government decides where and when you can protest, it's no longer protest.
Of course it's not.
If they can decide what time your protest ends, it's not a protest.
You have got a right, a God-given right to do that, and you do not ask permission. Because the minute you ask permission, you're letting the jurisdiction of them over you straight away. No, we are staying here. We demand. That's where we are, unfortunately, now. And if people are still sceptical about the national shutdown or the national strike, because they're going to, would you rather lose a week's wages? Because I'm telling you now, a week, if you shut down for a week, how much that would fucking shit the life out of this government, mate.
Exactly.
It would. So people lose a week's wages or lose your freedom, because that's basically where we are at. And
the thing is, Stefan, me and Steve as well, me and Tom have noticed that the same people that come out and rubbish a national strike are the same people that advocate for war. So it's like, well, you're willing to lose your life, but not a week's wage.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
I mean, that NATO fella that come out the other day and give his speech about this, that, and what our forefathers. These people are completely deluded. There's something seriously wrong with them to be coming out with that sort of rhetoric when most people can see straight through their bullshit and they know but they still are acting this game out like nobody knows what they're doing. It's a proxy war. It's nothing, and it will play into their hands because they'll get rid of as many of us as they can. Because that's basically the end game, isn't it? With the digital currency and the.
I'm going to round this up because I like to keep this to the hour mark. People's attention.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry for. I do get carried away sometimes.
No, it's all right, mate. You're fine. No, I like listening from the audience and stuff like that. I'm trying to encourage a few more people to speak up and.
Yeah, it would be nice just to get a bit of discourse, and people's different ideas, or views. You can disagree with somebody.
I'm like Tom, Stefan. I get sick of hearing my own voice eventually. It's like, can somebody else please just come in and talk for a bit?
Yeah, well, that's basically, that's what you want, isn't it? You want to get people having discussions about the things that actually matter.
All right, then, mate. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to wrap this one up.
Yeah, go on, mate. I'll speak to you again, Vin. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, mate. Brilliant.
Bye-bye.
All right, buddy. See you soon. Right, guys. I'm going to end this one here. Thanks for all coming to watch. I'm guessing not a lot of people are watching because they're all going down to watch the Tommy Robinson Christmas live thing today. I wish them all the best and that sort of thing. It's just not my cup of tea. This is Vindicator signing off.